Okay, in this module, we will be doing liver and the biliary system. So we'll have a number of interesting topics. I apologize if there's any background noise since I'm currently in a hospital. But let's move forward, okay? So the liver is an amazing organ. Uh, it It occupies most of the right upper quadrant of your abdomen, and it's heavily involved in many functions. So let's look at some of them here. So bile production and excretion into the small intestines. Okay, so bile production is from the liver cells, which are called hepatocytes, and is then excreted into the biliary system, the bile ducts. Some of it will be stored in the gallbladder, and a lot of it will be used for excretion into the duodenum for emulsification, which is combining with fat so that enzymes can break it down. So emulsification means so that one fluid can mix with another, allowing it to be digested. So if you have oil and water, which is kind of the equivalent of what's going on in the small intestine, so you've eaten a meal with fats, that's the oil, and most of the other things are water-based, so they're not mixing at all. And what bile allows it to do is it combines with the fat so that it emulsifies in the water, which makes it much easier for the lipase to break down. Metabolism and excretion of drugs. So many drugs that we use are not only broken down in the liver, but also excreted by the liver. So it's not just the kidneys. Heavily involved in metabolism of fats, which are triglycerides, proteins, which amino acids, they're made of amino acids, and carbohydrates, which are chains of sugar molecules. Enzyme activation. It's all kinds of enzymes that are activated by the liver. Many enzymes are produced in the liver. For example, all the coagulation factors, all the coagulation proteins are made in the liver. Albumin is made in the liver. So most protein synthesis that is then secreted into the bloodstream. So protein carriers, albumin for oncotic pressure, clotting, all kinds of processes are the proteins are made within the liver hepatocytes. Storage of glycogen, which can easily be broken down into glucose. So glycogen is stored in the liver, so that if you need more glucose in the coming days, glycogen can be broken down very easily. Fat-soluble vitamins are stored in the liver, not water-soluble. The only exception is vitamin B12. That's also stored in the liver, but mainly the fat-soluble vitamins. As mentioned before, synthesis of plasma proteins, such as albumin, which is a big one. Hormones are activated in the liver, and all the clotting factors, which are proteins. So many functions. Okay, so let's just go around quickly here because we've mentioned a lot of them. So top left, and we'll go anti-clockwise. Removes potentially toxic byproducts of certain medications, for sure. Many drugs are detoxified in the liver. or converted into the liver, to their active form. So for example, codeine is not active. It's actually converted to morphine in the liver. So liver does a lot of conversion of medications, and it detoxifies and inactivates medications. Metabolism or break down nutrients from food to produce energy. So all the triglycerides, the amino acids and the small peptides and the carbohydrates and sugars are being returned to the liver by the portal vein to be stored, to be processed. So very important in overall energy metabolism of the body. The next one is helping your body fight infection by removing bacteria from the blood. Sure, I mean, the liver is a huge filter, and there will be bacteria coming up from the bowel. I mean, the bowel is full of bacteria, and it has to go through the liver first. So it is a fantastic filtration system. As mentioned, the clotting factors are all produced there. So you can imagine if your liver is diseased or you have cirrhosis, that we'll talk about more, you will have abnormal ability to clot blood. You'll be at risk for clotting or for bleeding because the liver isn't functioning properly. And that becomes a big issue with cirrhosis. Production of bile, which allows you to digest fats and also allows you to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. So if bile is missing because of a liver disease, very difficult for fat absorption and to acquire the fat-soluble vitamins. In terms of proteins, if you're asked where a protein is made, you can be pretty sure that it'll be produced in the liver, because it really is the factory of protein production for the body. Prevents shortages of nutrients by storing vitamins, minerals, and sugar. Yeah, so liver is the main storage of glycogen, which is long strands of glucose that can easily be broken down for immediate energy use. And as mentioned, the fat-soluble vitamins and B12 are stored in the liver. So let's look at the next slide here, the hepatic portal vein. So the portal vein is basically the vein that is returning everything from the gastrointestinal tract, basically from the lower esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and it's returning the blood from this system to flow back to the liver. Okay, and that's the hepatic portal vein system. And why does it do this? Well, the body doesn't want blood directly going from the intestines directly into the bloodstream. It wants to filter, process, metabolize, and check it for infection. So that's what the hepatocytes do, right? So it's a screening process, and once the blood's been screened and processed and the liver has removed glucose, carbohydrates, the amino acids, the triglycerides, and it can then flow through the liver and get into the general venous circulation. So it'll actually drain into the inferior vena cava, which can then go back to the heart, and it's past the liver. And the first pass is called the first pass metabolism. So many drugs that you ingest, we will know what percentage of the drug will be metabolized with the first pass through the liver. So every drug on the market will have a first pass metabolism, and that's why we need to know that, so that we can adjust doses of drugs, so that we can see a certain level of the blood of the drug in your bloodstream. So, so for example, if you're taking a penicillin for pneumonia, well, we not that we do all the time, but we could check what's the first pass metabolism of this oral medication, so that we know how much is getting into the bloodstream. And researchers would do that. This isn't something that we would memorize working in the hospital or the emergency room, but it's definitely a concept of whatever we take as a medication orally has a metabolism even the first time it goes through the liver. Okay, so let's look at the anatomy of liver, bile ducts, and pancreas. So the liver, as I mentioned, lives in the right upper quadrant, and you can see the top smooth surface of it, and that's because it's right below the diaphragm. So it's taking the shape of the diaphragm right below it. And on the lower part, on the inferior part of the liver is where the gallbladder lives, tucked in there. And you'll see two green tubes coming from the liver itself. Those are hepatic bile ducts, left and right hepatic bile ducts. And the cystic duct coming from the liver will join them to become the common bile duct. The common bile duct, in green after the gallbladder, will drain down, go through the pancreas, and connect with the pancreatic duct. And these two tubes combined, still the common bile duct, will drain into the duodenum. There's a little sphincter there, a little valve called the sphincter of Oddi. Just a bit of a valve. And where it drains into the duodenum has a kind of a cool name. It's a little hole where it drains, and it's called the ampulla of Vader. Okay. So you can see that the liver, the bile ducts, the gallbladder, the pancreas are all quite connected. So as we go through this module, you'll see that, you know, diseases of the bile duct, of the common bile duct, might affect the pancreas. It might back up flow to the liver. So we'll see that there's some connections between all these organs. So try to understand this and just this simple anatomy, so that when we're talking about diseases, it'll make more sense. So just let's look at the top here, the liver. So definitely the largest internal organ. It's much larger than your heart or a lung or a kidney. Skin by far is the largest overall organ. Now, the unit of the liver is what's called the hepatocyte. So a hepatocyte is really just a liver cell. Okay? Kupffer cells are really just liver macrophages that are floating around in the liver, and they're mopping up bacteria, potential infections, anything that they deem are not safe to enter the systemic circulation. So they're part of the immune system. Now, a healthy liver, if a small portion of it is removed, it has the ability to regenerate if it's healthy. Not a cirrhotic liver, okay? Now, if we look at the diagram below, look at the left side. So here's the portal vein coming in. Okay, this is one little unit, and there's millions of them. So there's the portal vein coming in, and the blue blood coming from the portal vein, filled with nutrients, is now going to flow along a canal that has hepatocytes. And the hepatocytes are going to take all kinds of things from the portal blood that's returning from the digestive tract. Okay, and you can see that there's Kupffer cells along the way to as part of the immune system. And in green, the hepatocytes, the liver cells, are producing bile, which are going to go through little tiny bile ducts in the liver first before they become big ducts that exit the liver. And as the blood continues, it'll finally drain into a central vein. And these veins will be small to begin with, and they'll all start to join up until finally there'll be drainage to the inferior vena cava. So the hepatic vein finally will drain into the inferior vena cava, and the blood's been cleared into the systemic circulation. So also remember that liver, just like any other organ, needs its own blood supply. So there will be a hepatic artery to feed the liver, right? This system we're looking at is the system of what the liver is doing to the blood in the portal vein that's returning from the digestive tract. But always remember, every organ needs its own blood supply, and the liver has a hepatic artery, and its function is to feed the liver with oxygen and glucose that it also needs. Okay, so just quickly here again, portal vein system on the left, flowing along to the right to get to the central vein system that's going to flow into the inferior vena cava and the systemic circulation. Along the way, there's Kupffer cells, there's bile being produced from the hepatocytes. And this unit is repeated millions and millions of times within the liver.